Today we're going to take on a really controversial subject, and that is why no one seems to agree with the concept of getting an ex back. We're going to study actually why people believe this and really our approach to people like this. So here's the deal. This usually occurs when you go through a breakup and you decide that you end up wanting to try to get your ex back. You want to repair that broken relationship. And of course, when you start something very complicated, you seek help elsewhere. Oftentimes this help or support comes from friends or family. But what's interesting is when you actually talk to your friends or family about your ambitions of trying to repair this broken relationship, they aren't exactly what I would call supportive. They criticize you at every turn, they simply tell you it's not worth it, and they try to talk you out of it. So we see a lot of this sometimes in our YouTube comments. So I'll sometimes post a video talking about the no contact rule or a concept or strategy that we're trying to talk about. And sometimes it's happening more rarely now, but sometimes you'll get someone who comments, "Why would you ever want an ex back? This is the dumbest advice I had ever heard. Why would anyone ever want to try to win an ex back? Once an ex, always an ex." You always hear these type of things. So what is it that creates this almost stereotypical response when you find out someone's trying to win the ex back? Why is it that people are not supportive? So I think the first thing that we need to understand is you have people believing certain lies about the process of winning an ex back. And those lies usually are that they believe that once an ex is an ex, they should always be an ex. They believe the lie that human beings don't have the capacity to change, or they believe that the process of trying to convince someone to get you back is manipulative. Usually you hear the manipulative thing when you start hearing about some of the strategies like reverse psychology or even something like the no contact rule, where usually if you're thinking the no contact rule is manipulative, you're kind of completely missing the point of the no contact rule, which is supposed to be more about teaching you to live with yourself before you can live with your ex. Other words, we're trying to teach you how to outgrow your ex during the no contact rule. Hey there, real quick before we get you back to your video, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, well, please do that. It really does help. It helps keep our video editors paid. It helps us keep doing these high quality videos. And it's really 5 seconds out of your day to click one little button. So if you could, please just click the subscribe button. No harm, no foul if you're not interested, but we figured we'd try. All right, let's get you back to your video. And I've always found it kind of ironic that people are incredibly supportive of couples who are having marriage problems and trying to repair a broken marriage, assuming one person has separated or in some cases divorced. Usually people on the outside looking at situations with separation as kind of a really good thing. They want to kind of repair the sanctity of marriage. But what happens if you're not married to your significant other, but you care just as much about them? Why is it that you aren't getting this type of support? Why is it that there's almost like an incredible amount of negativity surrounding the idea of trying to win an ex back? Well, I think this is primarily for two reasons. You see, I think that most people that criticize the process of trying to win an ex back are projecting their own experiences onto the person who wants their ex back. So usually these are the type of people that are looking at one of their friends or family members who's just going through a breakup, and they think back to the time that they went through a breakup and they project those negative experiences onto this person. Because after all, what do we have but our own experiences to project onto someone else? So if you, for example, went through a horrific breakup where number one, you never wanted the ex back, or number two, the ex treated you so poorly that you were forced to break up with them, it's really hard to look at that experiences from a different angle than the one you've already experienced. And then you have this situation where I'm noticing a lot of people who are criticizing those who want to get their exes back those are the people who project their experiences onto these people that tend to be the ones who broke up with their partners. But we're finding that most of the people that work with us have been broken up with. So they're on the actual other side of the equation. So there's almost like a little bit of a disconnect between these two types of personalities. And then you have the concept of people who criticize the process. They kind of fall into this prophet versus practitioner mindset. So what is the prophet versus practitioner mindset? Okay, so this is actually something that I've noticed a lot. There are usually two types of people that kind of walk around throughout life. You have the prophets and the practitioners. So the prophets are someone who, when they learn about something new for the first time, it excites them, right? And so when it excites them, they start becoming a prophet. They start telling everyone about it without actually practicing what they're preaching. So all they end up doing is telling other people about it, but when you kind of put the mirror back on them and say like, well, are you living this way? They really can't answer. And then of course you have the practitioners. These are the people who hear about a concept and rather than telling it to all their friends, they just do it and they practice it. So how does that relate to this? Well, I'm noticing a lot of times people who criticize you when you are trying to get an ex back are often in this prophet mindset. They've never been in a scenario where they've ever wanted to get an ex back themselves. So they can't possibly understand what it's like. So when they're projecting their own experiences onto you, oftentimes they've never literally been in a situation where they have had the types of feelings that you have had. So what you're getting is a lot of these people who hear this concept of once an ex, always an ex, or you should never try to get an ex back, and they take that to heart without actually having been in the scenario you are in exactly. So now we get to the million-dollar question, and that is, how do you handle people's opinions of you? This is kind of a hard one to answer because it requires you to have something that you're probably not going to have a lot of right after a breakup. And that is, you need to have the confidence to be alone and be okay with it. You need to have the confidence to walk this path alone. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is tell a family member or a friend if they're going to be a negative type of an influence. Now, we can't choose who our family members are, but we can choose who our friends are. And so many people I'm seeing continue to be friends with someone who is just a negative influence on them constantly. You don't have to outright kick this friend out of your life, but what might be a good idea is to do a little bit of a no contact on the negative friend who's being rude to you or is not even trying to understand on what you're going through. So I think the first thing that's important, if you have someone who is this negative influence who continues to criticize you every step of the way, it's not to bash them for their opinion. They are entitled for their opinion, and hey, they may be right. Maybe you should not be trying to get this ex back. But if you are dead set on getting your ex back, you probably don't want to surround yourself with people who are just going to constantly criticize you at every single turn. Instead, you need to kind of train yourself not to care what they think and live your life the way that you want to live your life. And this is kind of an undervalued part of the process. How do you not care what someone thinks about you? Well, in my opinion, people who care deeply about what others think about them don't have a lot of self-confidence. They often derive whatever confidence they do have from other people's opinions of them. So that is kind of where you should start, internally. You need to learn how to be okay being by yourself before you should even try to get your ex back, or before you should even try to form friendships. It is important for you to understand that the only relationship that lasts your entire life is with you. You are stuck with yourself throughout your entire life, so you want to ensure that you are confident and happy with yourself before you try to do anything. And so I think that is how you derive confidence and fortitude, and that's something that's missing for a lot of people.